Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli attacks on Gaza killed nearly 100 Palestinians Monday, including at least 39 people who died when an Israeli warplane bombed a seaside cafe in northern Gaza City. Among those killed were children celebrating a birthday party. The prominent visual artist Franz Al-Salmi and the photojournalist Ismail Abu Hattab. He's at least the 227th Palestinian journalist killed by Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 2023. Palestinian journalist Bayan Abu Sultan was injured in the assault, along with dozens of others. Separately, Israel attacked tents housing displaced people in the courtyard of the Al-Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza. Al Jazeera reports it's the 10th time Israeli forces have attacked the medical complex. This comes as Gaza's hunger crisis continues to deepen. In Khan Yunis, Dropsite News reports 29-year-old Ayub Saber Abu al-Hussein died from severe malnutrition caused by the Israeli blockade. The United Nations warns the territory has completely run out of infant formula, putting hundreds of babies at imminent risk of death. Already, at least 66 Palestinian children have died of acute malnutrition due to Israel's blockade, according to Gaza officials. Meanwhile, Israel killed at least 15 people seeking food in southern Gaza at a militarized aid distribution site run by the U.S. and Israeli-backed so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. 50 others were wounded in the airstrike.
These people had gone to eat. They went to get a morsel of food to eat. They said they were distributing aid. How do you call it aid, then you shoot at people's children? Where is the world? Where are the people? You tell me aid and it's documented. Then why do you kill us?
With the latest attack, nearly 600 Palestinians have been killed while attempting to get food and aid at GHF sites. On Monday, the medical charity Doctors Without Borders condemned the shadowy group's operations as, quote, slaughter masquerading as humanitarian aid. After headlines, we'll go to Gaza for the latest. Here in New York, police arrested at least 28 people Monday as they ended a 40-day fast outside the U.S. mission to the United Nations by escalating their protest. Among those arrested was former Navy corpsman and Veterans for Peace organizer Mike Ferner, who poured animal blood on the mission's entrance to condemn U.S. support for Israel's military.
Here, United States, have some blood. You like shedding it all over the world so much? There you go. How about some blood?
On Capitol Hill, U.S. senators held another marathon session overnight Monday ahead of a final vote on President Trump's massive package of tax cuts for the wealthy and cuts to social programs benefiting poor and working families. At least 2 Republicans have broken ranks with party leaders to oppose Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina cited deep cuts to Medicaid, which he says would devastate his state. And Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky cited the Congressional Budget Office's finding that the bill would add $3.3 trillion to the national debt. Under enormous pressure, Senator Tillis says he will not run in the next election. The Department of Justice has issued new directives aimed at stripping naturalized U.S. citizens of their status if they're accused of committing a crime or of posing a threat to the United States. A DOJ memo published earlier this month said naturalized citizens subjected to these civil proceedings would also not be entitled to an attorney. There are an estimated 25 million naturalized citizens living in the U.S. This comes as in an unprecedented move. Trump's DHS has built a national citizenship surveillance database in collaboration with the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to store information from federal immigration agencies and the Social Security Administration. President Trump's traveling to Florida today for the opening of a new immigration jail that officials have dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, an isolated airfield in the Everglades that's been turned into a mass detention tent camp. The ICE jail is expected to hold up to 5,000 people awaiting deportation, costing an estimated $450 million a year to operate. Over the weekend, Miccosukee tribe leaders and environmental activists rallied outside the site after groups filed a lawsuit attempting to block the camp's opening until it undergoes an environmental review as required by federal law.
This is almost like we're living in a foreign country. They didn't do any environmental impacts. They didn't do anything about the housing, whether it's going to be safe. They're leaving these people out in the middle of hurricane season. This is just absolutely ridiculous.
Florida's Attorney General and Trump ally, James Uthmeier, has said Florida will not invest much in security as the jail is surrounded by alligators and pythons. As protests grow against ICE raids nationwide, California activists are rallying in support of farm workers who have not returned to work in fields out of fear of arrest and deportation. Reuters estimates up to 70% of farm workers have been forced out of work as masked federal agents target their places of employment.
Pues prácticamente uno se levanta en las mañanas y se levanta pues.
One wakes up in the morning in fear because many of us will leave our house and probably won't come back. And I think that's the concern of everyone who goes out to work in the mornings, to the fields mostly. Concerns about the sun, the heat, and yet another high concern is that many of us might not have the joy to return home. Many do, others do not.
Immigrant rights activists are calling on the Soccer Federation, FIFA, to ban ICE and other federal agents from its games during the 2025 Club World Cup hosted across U.S. cities, as well as next year's anticipated FIFA World Cup. Ahead of the start of the tournament, Customs and Border Protection vowed to be suited and booted at games. Advocates rallied outside FIFA's offices in Coral Gables, Florida, Monday.
We're here because we want people to feel safe going to their games. We don't want for people to be sitting at these games and watching families be separated, wondering whether or not ICE is going to come to their seat in the stands and ask them for their papers.
A new investigation reveals Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem secretly took a personal cut of $80,000 in political donations made to her dark money group American Resolve Policy Fund and failed to disclose it before joining the Trump administration, which could be illegal. ProPublica reports in 2023, while Noem was governor of South Dakota, the group, quote, routed funds to a personal company of Noem's that had recently been established in Delaware. The company's name is Ashwood Strategies. The news adds to mounting allegations of corruption in Trump's cabinet. In March, while Noem toured El Salvador's mega prison Secat, she was infamously photographed wearing a gold Rolex Cosmograph Daytona watch that costs around $50,000. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a challenge to a 1971 campaign finance law that limits coordination between political parties and candidates. The challenge was brought by the National Republican Congressional Committee and two candidates, including then-Senator J.D. Vance. In a statement, Public Citizen called on justices to reject the challenge, writing, quote, in the 15 years since the Supreme Court Citizens United abysmal decision opened the floodgates to unlimited corporate and billionaire campaign spending, the corruption of American politics has gone from bad to worse, Public Citizen wrote. Iran's judiciary said Sunday Israel's attack on Tehran's Evin prison last month killed at least 71 people, including guards, prisoners, visiting family members, and people living nearby. Israeli officials haven't said why they targeted the prison, which has for decades housed political prisoners and dissidents. Meanwhile, Iran has rebuffed a request by the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog to visit nuclear sites bombed by Israel and the U.S. last month. On Monday, Iran's foreign minister called the request by the International Atomic Energy Agency chief Rafael Grossi meaningless and possibly even malign in intent, unquote. On Sunday, Grossi said he's convinced the U.S. attack on Iran failed to obliterate its nuclear program, as President Trump has repeatedly claimed.
They can have, in a matter of months, I would say, a few cascades of centrifuges spinning and producing enriched uranium, or less than that. But as I said, frankly speaking, one cannot claim that everything has disappeared and there is nothing there.
In climate news, a massive heat dome is bringing record temperatures to much of Europe, with forecasters warning of even more extreme heat in the coming days. Spain and Portugal just recorded their hottest ever June temperatures. France saw its first forest fires of the season erupt, while Italy put nearly 24 cities under red alert heat advisories. In Turkey, more than 50,000 people have been evacuated. Fast-spreading wildfires. This comes after most of North America sweltered under warmer-than-average temperatures in June, with over 3,000 record-high temperatures recorded across the U.S. during last week's heat wave. For the first time in its history, Alaska issued a heat advisory in June after temperatures in Fairbanks reached 86 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll have more on heat domes and the climate crisis later in the broadcast when we speak with climatologist Michael Mann. Nearly half the population of Tuvalu has applied for visas to permanently relocate to Australia as the low-lying Pacific Island nation faces an existential catastrophe from rising sea levels. Australia has agreed to accept 280 climate refugees annually from Tuvalu's 11,000 citizens. And in Hong Kong, the opposition League of Social Democrats announced Sunday it'll disband after its members were prosecuted and jailed under a national security law imposed by Beijing in 2020. The crackdown came after party leaders helped organize massive street protests in 2019 in support of multi-party democracy in Hong Kong. This is Chan Po-ying, chair of the League of Social Democrats.
Over the 19 years since our founding, we have endured hardships of internal disputes and the near-total imprisonment of our leadership, while witnessing the erosion of civil society, the fading of grassroots voices, the omnipresence of red lines, and the draconian suppression of dissent. Despite such adversities, the League of Social Democrats persisted, doing what little we could, just to remain true to our founding values and beliefs.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman, back in New York with Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.